Hello, interwebs, and welcome to Close Up. I'm your co-host, Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
Today, we offer a tribute to the late Kevin Conroy. We'll discuss his life, career, what he meant to us, and his ultimate legacy to this world, in our opinion. Zooming into our medium shot now, what was your first exposure to Kevin Conroy's work?
My first exposure was probably the Arkham games. I mean, there was obviously probably little Justice League animation stuff here and there that I saw for the movies and, of course, the Justice League show, but I didn't really watch that as a kid. I guess I was just busy watching other things as well. And I never got into the Batman animated series, the original one, when I was younger. I wish I did. I'm trying to find a box set of it now because I can't find it anywhere on streaming. And just to have, maybe even a 4K version, but, who knows. And, but yeah, my very first probably was Arkham Asylum. I remember seeing clips of it on YouTube and, just wanting to play it. Definitely went out and bought it as soon as I could. And what was funny, I think the only version that I could buy was like a collector's edition. So what I actually have it right here. So what came with it was the game, a large-scale Batarang that was from the game. But also, if anybody's played it, the notebook from the doctor that's in the game for the first Arkham Asylum.
Is he the one who left all the tapes?
Yeah, it was that doctor. Dr. Penelope Yun. Yeah, so and it has all like the, there's different characters in it. There's, Ivy and all that. There's, it's all the different ones before you ever and then at the end there's Batman.
I know him.
Which is pretty funny. The Joker's in here somewhere as well. There's also the Warden Sharp as well. So it was a pretty cool collector's edition. Yeah, the Joker's like the front page. So I can't remember if the guy said, "Oh, we don't have a copy of it without the collector's edition," or he just sold me the collector's edition. But I remember carrying it on my back, in my backpack while I was biking home, and it was the most awkward thing ever. And that kind of also sparked my love for getting collector's editions. Because of just the stuff that came in it. But yeah, I played Arkham Asylum for the first time and fell in love with it. I mean, I'm going to talk about it later on in this episode, but I think the Arkham series is probably the best portrayals of both Batman and Joker that Kevin and Mark Hamill has done throughout their entire career. I just think it's so accurate. And then, of course, went on to play Arkham City when that came out. Love that. And then Arkham Knight came out. Love that. Even though it got a lot of hate at the time, I was a big fan of it. And I just been following Kevin Conroy, all these years throughout the movies. And whenever, you hear his voice, there was a while where they went back and forth between Kevin Conroy doing the voice or
Troy
if it was
Baker
someone
as
else
well.
doing.
I think Troy Baker.
Yeah,
did
Troy
some.
Baker.
Or was he the Joker?
Well, he
I
did.
don't remember.
No, he did Arkham Origins. No, I don't know if Troy Baker did Arkham Origins. He did Arkham Origins, but he was the Joker in that. But it was a different actor for Arkham Origins, and I thought that one was fine. But I was mostly talking about the animated movies and shows.
The new 52 based ones, in the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, but whenever I saw that Kevin Conroy was voicing Batman at the time in a movie or an episode of a show, even if it was a one-off, I was like, okay, this is going to be a good episode. Just him as a whole he's just perfect. Like he's my favorite Batman. He always has been. I just think he embodies the character so well. And yeah, that's how I got into Kevin.
Well, I feel like for me, Kevin Conroy's Batman has been around as long as I can remember, just ever, really. I think when I was a kid, what got me into superheroes in the first place was Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Adam West's Batman on old 1960s reruns, and Batman the Animated Series. I used to have a DVD of Batman the Animated Series, just the first season. I never watched the reruns on TV, I don't think. I don't even know why we never had the other seasons. It was just season 1, and I rewatched that with my brother so many times. I remember so many of those episodes. They made a very profound effect on me, and even though there was other Batmans, I grew up seeing both sides of Batman. I saw the campy Adam West Batman, the more fun, lighthearted one. But even as a kid, I gravitated towards Kevin Conroy's film noir-inspired, darker, more mature, and they were all Batman to me. But Kevin Conroy's just felt more... Not that Adam West one talked down to the audience, but it was funnier. It was fun to see Batman in live action, but something about the animated Batman, just its gothic style, the darkness to it, even as a kid, it was just really interesting. And I guess I would have been around 4 or 5 years old when the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoons were on the air too. So yeah, I had those reruns of Batman the Animated Series, but where I really watched him in real time was those Justice League cartoons. And those are some of my formative entertainment growing up as well. Those Justice League cartoons were incredible, and Batman was always my favorite growing up. Superman's my favorite now, but back then Batman was my favorite, and that was in no small part to Kevin Conroy's performance. To this day, 20 years later, he's still the voice I think of when I think of Batman. When I read Batman comics, I read them in his voice. Although if I'm reading 1940s comics, I do hear Adam West's voice because the character's written a little more like him. But just modern comics, most comics, it's Kevin Conroy's voice. When I got a little older, I still remember the first time I played Arkham Asylum. I got it as a rental from Blockbuster. You remember what that is, kids? Does anyone know what that is? We're showing our age here. So that was...
I think there's one still alive. I think there's
still one, huh?
Like somewhere in America, yeah. I think because it's in a small town, and just this community has just come together and just kept it in business the whole time. I think. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, anyway, when I was a little kid, I didn't really think too much of the difference between, the Batman in Arkham Asylum sounds the exact same as the Batman in the animated shows, in the Justice League cartoon, in the animated series, even other video games I played based on Batman the Animated Series. There's one I always remember called Rise of Sin Tzu, which nobody seems to remember but me, but it was based on the animated series, and that was also voiced by Kevin Conroy. My point is, across all these different mediums, I never really thought so much about the voice acting, about, he was just Batman. And it was always a little strange when somebody else was Batman who wasn't Kevin Conroy. I still remember there were other shows like, I think the one was called just The Batman. There was Batman the Brave and the Bold. There were other Batman cartoons as a kid. But even when I was a kid and didn't really know the concept of voice actors or studio politics or anything, I always knew there was a more definitive Batman than all the others. And that was Kevin.
Yeah, you pricked my memory there of the Batman TV show. That's the one I grew up on. That's the show I grew up on. I don't know if it's because of... Yeah, I don't know if it's because the channels that I was watching wasn't really playing Batman the Animated Series, or I just never had a box set. But the channel I watched, they had the Batman, and that guy did a pretty good job. But again, it's not Kevin Conroy. I think he did a pretty good job. That's actually a really good show. It's underrated.
I don't even really remember the story so much as the weird animation style for the Joker in particular.
Yeah.
It's a memorable animation style.
Yeah. It's memorable. There's like a music cue in it as well. That's really cool. There's also what do you call it? Not like a spin-off movie, but just a movie set in that universe where he fights Dracula.
I have that one too on DVD. Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting take on the Batman universe, or the stylization of Batman. So I liked it.
So let's zoom into our close-up now and get into the real meat of this show about Kevin Conroy's life, and not just our backgrounds, but what he meant to us, his legacy, etc. So do you want to talk more about what he meant to us, or do you want to talk more about his career first?
Uh, I mean, I might just be doing that the whole time, but yeah, Kevin Conroy was just one of those guys who he just brought so much charisma to the screen just through his voice, and he was able to bring a character to life through voice acting, which a lot of people don't really understand how difficult that is.
It's actual acting. It's not just
Yeah.
speaking to a microphone like we are right now. I mean, even if you're watching this on video, I'm being pretty animated. I have facial expressions. I'm not just talking monotone into a mic telling you my opinions. This is acting too, in a way. We're putting on a performance for you, and voice acting is the same way. It's very underrated. People don't really appreciate what voice actors bring to a medium. It's like they think we just go into booths with soundproofing foam. People say the line, and this is the line, I am Batman. All right, that's good. So much more to it than that. Respect voice actors, people. It's real acting. And it's good. It's really powerful stuff.
Which is makes me kind of sad because I wish we were able to see him at Fan Expo. But I assumed he canceled because he was dealing with his illness. Which is sad, but I can also fully understand.
Kevin Conroy came to our local...
I was able to meet Troy Baker, though. So that was cool.
Kevin Conroy came to our local Fan Expo Toronto many, many years in a row. I've been going pretty much every year, not counting the COVID years when it wasn't open, but I've gone pretty much every year since 2018. And Kevin Conroy, I believe, was at all of those, except for just this year, which is when I probably would have gone to see him if I had the chance. But you know what? I always figured, well, there's a lot of older celebrities here, guys in their 70s, 80s. Kevin Conroy is only in his 60s, so I'll have plenty of opportunities to see him going forward. Don't, if you want to see a person, don't do what I did. Just go see a person.
Yeah.
I still believe in principle, go for the older guys first, because you never know.
I mean, it's not a bad rule.
This is a freak occurrence, but you know what? I never got to meet one of my idols because of that. So take from my experience what you will there. But I am very disappointed I never got to meet him, even just to say, hello, I'm a big fan.
Just, thank you, yeah.
Your work changed my life, really, which I can get into a little later, but...
Yeah, all I've heard about, just from stories online with people who've met him, he's just such a nice guy to be around. He's so fun and so appreciative of the fans. That's what divides him from other types of voice actors or different actors, that he truly cared about the Batman character and its fans. He was so passionate about the project. That's why he did it for like over 30 years.
He has the record as the longest tenure of a Batman actor ever. He clearly had a love for the character, and like you said, a love for the fans too. I've been watching a lot of interviews with Kevin Conroy to prepare for this episode, to learn about some of his career and background, and just hear the man talk about his own life. And he seems like such a genuine human being with a passion for life and making people happy. And I've seen so many pictures of him at expos with fans, and he just looks really happy being around smiling people, making them happy. When he shares his stories, he makes a lot of people laugh. He goes to so many conventions. Like I said, nobody has to do that. Yeah, he's getting paid to be there, but I feel like he showed up to these things at a higher frequency than most. And keeping in mind, he's still a working actor. A lot of people who come to these things are retired and they're looking to make a little extra on the side, or they're not working as much anymore. But he was still a working actor in his early 60s, which isn't the prime of his career, but he's still working a lot and going to all these expos and talking to people online. I heard he answered a lot of comments online and had a very active social media presence. And he was on sites like Cameo as well, where you get personalized video messages from him, and he made a lot of very heartfelt ones and really put in his all for the fans. And you don't get that with a lot of celebrities. Not just a passion for what they do, but an appreciation for the people they're doing it for, who love them and their work, and they want to give back to that community, even though you're already giving a lot to us just by doing the work, which we love so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. He truly was just one of those just great people who, again, just from a young age, just allowed me personally, just allowed you to be interested in this type of stuff, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Where just to be able to, you know, even just play those Arkham games and be like, it's just not some guy in a bad costume fighting a clown. You know, there's depths to this. There's, you know, there's character arcs. There's ups and downs. There's some funny moments. There's serious moments. It's a nice drama. And I honestly don't think Batman would be as iconic of a character in the modern day if Kevin didn't voice some of his roles. I honestly believe that.
The funny thing about that is, even I've seen Kevin Conroy deliver dialogue written for guys like Christian Bale and Ben Affleck, or even
Robert Pattinson.
Robert Pattinson, and every time he delivers their lines, it's better. I mean,
it's crazy, right?
Not to knock those guys' performances; they're all great Batmen. I love most of their takes, and they have some really good movies, and you know, they've got their thing and they're beloved in their own right. But every time Kevin Conroy reads their lines, he just does it better. I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. It just feels more like Batman to me. And I'm like, if you just dubbed over all the Batman movies, wouldn't that be great? Somehow they'd be better.
Funny. Yeah, his rendition of the Dark Knight monologue at the end of that movie is just breathtaking.
Powerful. I've seen that one.
It's crazy how good it is. It's crazy how good it is.
Yeah. I had another point, which I blanked on. Going back to... Well, I'll skip back to what I was thinking before and saying, I feel like his work in the Arkham games, for example, is... I don't really think video games had that kind of... Not a lot of video games had great voice acting like that in the 2000s. I feel like in the 2000s, video games were largely still, you know, they were fun. They didn't take themselves too seriously. There wasn't really this focus on immersive, deep characters and stories a lot. The Arkham games weren't the first ones, but they were definitely one of the first to take a big beloved property like Batman and take him seriously in a video game form. Which also is like his other work as well. Batman the Animated Series was, just for example, you're going into Batman the Animated Series, the biggest adaptations of Batman were still Adam West and just recently the Tim Burton one starring Michael Keaton. Mm-hmm. In 1989. Batman the Animated Series started production around 1991. And Kevin Conroy's talked about how when he first got called in for this audition, the only Batman he was ever familiar with was the Adam West Batman. He didn't know anything about the comic books or see the Tim Burton movie or anything. He just thought a Batman is this silly character. And he had really no connection to it. And he's even talked about how when he went into that audition, he was looking to get the role of Harvey Bullock, the tough as nails cop,
or Commissioner Gordon. Yeah.
Commissioner Gordon's
it's because he
comes.
Yeah. It's because he comes from a theater background in Juilliard, and it's funny amongst theater actors. You always want the more
serious,
the word I'm looking for.
Tough as nails. Cop
not serious, but you always try. It's very theater thing to do for go with the more out there character. To just have fun on stage and stuff. So it's a very theater thing to do. And I heard this, I'm taking this line from another podcast I listened to, but they told him, if you get Batman, you're in every episode, right? Stop trying to make us not hire you. It's basically what they said to him.
Well, see, he thought guys like Harvey Bullock or Commissioner Gordon were more of those out there characters he was looking for who could, he could really sink his teeth into as a classically trained actor. And then I've heard him talk about how he came to see Batman as that guy. He realized the Batman story is kind of a Greek drama, I believe he said in one interview, an epic tragedy. And the classically trained actor in him spoke to this character who he was a broken boy forced to build himself from the ground up to become an ideal and to everybody take his pain and turn it into a force for good. Dresses in grand costumes, becomes an ideal, becomes something larger than himself. You see the signal in the sky and the Man-Bat walking around town, and he kind of got to like this character just because of its epicness in scope and the depth behind it.
Yeah,
and
it's amazing how he was able to do that and it's crazy to think how it's this silly stigma against animation, but probably Batman the Animated Series is probably one of the best television shows ever produced.
It's in my top 10.
Storytelling.
Yep.
Yeah. And even like
won
some
Emmys.
of the
It even won Emmys for its writing.
And probably one of the best Batman movies out there is Mask of the Phantasm, which is made by the same people. It's set in the Batman animated universe, and it's got Kevin Conroy at his best. It's got the Mark Hamill at his best in terms of voice acting. It has such a bigger budget, so the animation looks so clean. But it's set in the animation style before they had to like reboot it. So before the character designs and stuff. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's just
I'm
a
going to
really
talk
good.
about Mask of the I'll talk about Mask of the Phantasm now. We're already into it, but I'll just say that you talked about Arkham Asylum as your favorite version. Mask of the Phantasm, to me, is my favorite Kevin Conroy performance as Batman. I think he carries so much depth in that movie. One of my all-time favorite Batman moments in anything is that sequence where, and you can find this sequence on YouTube, it's just a couple minutes long actually I think these are different sequences, but in the one sequence, basically the plot of this movie, if you've never seen it, is there's this new villain in town, the Phantasm, and Batman is fighting this person, but you also see, it's kind of also an adaptation of Batman Year One a little bit, where it flashes back to Bruce Wayne trying to be a vigilante for the first time. But just as he's gone through all this training and he comes back to Gotham and he's prepared to be this vigilante, not quite the Batman yet, but just prototype vigilante, he meets this rich heiress named Andrea Beaumont, and he falls in love with her. And she actually makes him happy enough that he considers not being a vengeful demon of the night, but settling down with her, getting married, maybe having a family, who knows? He can see a life with this woman. And there's this scene where he has a crisis of faith and he breaks down crying at the grave of his parents. And he says, I didn't expect to be happy. It just doesn't hurt as much anymore. I know I made you a promise, but I didn't expect to not have this turmoil in my mind and life. And that's just my favorite scene of Kevin Conroy's entire career as Batman. Just that vulnerability that he has in that moment where he's like, can you imagine any other Batman actor in a scene like that breaking down crying and like telling his deepest thoughts?
It's funny because it's not even a Batman moment, it's a Bruce Wayne moment.
Yeah.
That's what's kind of funny about it.
Yeah. He's breaking down crying, he's vulnerable, he's sharing his innermost thoughts, but he's not as single-minded or as other Batman. This is a Batman who debated not being Batman. He had a chance at being happy. He
Mm-hmm.
had an out and he nearly took it. That is such fantastic writing. And then some of the scenes after that, which, okay, I'm sorry, I'm spoiling some of the movie for you, but so later in these flashbacks, well, actually, it's not really a spoiler if you know the story of Batman. You know he becomes Batman. So Andrea leaves him. He doesn't know why. She just hands him a note that says she can't be with him anymore, and she gets it delivered to him. She doesn't even come in person. And that was the final straw for him. That was the moment where he became Batman. And then Shirley Walker's score swells as he puts on the cowl for the first time, and the shadow of the bat walks by Alfred, and Alfred just has this stunned face, and he just says, "My God." And
Yeah,
that's
the best part
moment.
of that sequence is you don't even see it. You don't even see him in the full costume. It's all in shadow. And
Yeah, you just see Alfred's
it's a
reaction in the
beautiful
score.
moment. Yeah. It's a beautiful
No,
moment.
no other Batman's gotten scenes like that.
No.
Mask of the Phantasm just breaks Bruce Wayne down to his core as a character. It gives him the most complexity to deal with as a human being. And Kevin Conroy plays it all amazingly. Now, I've heard that Kevin Conroy himself has said that he always loved the more psychological takes on Bruce Wayne himself. Two things he's mentioned before as some of his favorite works as Batman are the episode Perchance to Dream, where Bruce Wayne envisions a life where he never became Batman and his parents are still alive. So, and that one kind of messes with Bruce Wayne's mind as he envisions a life that was actually happy and not like a cursed existence as a vengeful vigilante. And another one, which I was surprised to hear him say was one of his favorites, was Arkham Knight, where he was really fascinated to play Batman as he succumbs to the Joker toxin and slowly loses his sanity throughout the game. You hear the Joker speaking into his mind throughout that whole game, and it just really delves into Bruce's psyche, and because Bruce knows his time is coming to an end soon, and whatever you do in this game, he knows this is going to be his last chance to save Gotham and set up his legacy. And that's really complicated stuff, once again, that Kevin Conroy loved to delve into. It was all about the psychology for him. And this is a guy who does Shakespeare. He was a Broadway and off-Broadway performer. He's a Shakespearean actor. And I think that's one thing that cuts him above all the others. I mean, once again, no offense to any of the other actors, but Shakespearean actors are legit. They're the best of the best. If you can pull off Shakespeare and make it sound good, that's not easy.
Well, he said he saw Batman as Hamlet when they were pitching him the role. They said, "Oh," and talking about the dual personalities and how he puts on a mask and stuff to hide who he truly is. He's like, "Oh, so this character is basically Hamlet," which he has played before. And he's also, he's talked about how he's had to put on a mask in his real life because of his sexuality and hiding that from his peers, but also trying to not be ashamed of it at the same time, and how hard that was growing up or working in the 80s and 90s in New York during the AIDS epidemic.
He wrote this incredible story. He wrote this incredible Batman comic called Finding Batman, where he details his tumultuous upbringing and the experiences he had, like Ryan said, dealing with the AIDS crisis in the 80s as a closeted gay man from a devout Irish Catholic family. He had an alcoholic for a father who had serious mental health issues. His brother was schizophrenic. He had to take care of his brother. He lost roles when people found out he was gay. He was the one who had to go to the hospital and find his father after his father tried to kill himself. He was the one who got sent to the hospital to look after him, and that scarred him. seeing what his father was like after that moment, and he had to care for his brother. So by the time he got to the role of Batman, he strongly related to Bruce Wayne's struggles of maintaining public and private faces, of yearning for stability he may never have in this world, of loss and grief and fear and constant inner turmoil. In many ways, he lived Bruce Wayne's psyche. He's talked before about how he was at the bedside of both his parents when they died. He watched them both die, and he was there for them at that moment. Just all of these experiences in his life coalesced to make him a very, I keep saying genuine, but I think that's why his performance rings so true, is because he had a lot of hardships in his life, and he really put all that pain of his life into Batman. It feels real when he says the words, because it is real for him.
Yeah. He's just a brilliant guy. He's been through so much, and this sounds very superficial to say, but as an actor, you take all the trauma that's happened in your life and you use it.
Yeah.
You use it in your work, and it definitely you try to you use it in a safe manner, and you make sure that you don't go full out in terms of you could accidentally hurt somebody, but you use it in order to, because that's all that acting is you take experiences of your life and you sort of use that in the roles that you are given and try to make the most authentic thing possible. And for a character whose parents were murdered and dressed up as a bat to fight crime against all these comic book villains, it's the most grounded performance, the most authentic you could ever do for that character. And not just in the animated series, not just in the games, but in all the media that he's ever done. I think one of the most underrated Justice League movie, I think, is Justice League Doom, where it's there's a plot where one of the villains steals Batman's plans to kill the Justice League that he created,
in case the Justice League ever goes rogue.
Yeah. And you can hear the panic in Kevin Conroy's voice when he finds out what's going on. And spoiler alert, when everything's all right in the end, yeah. They ask, "Well, what do you have to say for yourself?" He says, "Nothing. If I had the chance to do it, I would do it again. And I hope you guys would do the same." And it's just...
Yeah. He says something about, if you can't see the need for a Justice League with a check on it, then I don't need a vote. I'm leaving. They're going to kick him out.
Yeah. Yeah, they were going to vote to kick him out. He's like, "You know what? I'll just quit."
Yeah.
It was like,
you can't fire me. I quit.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. He would have been more
Kevin
like
Hart before Kevin Hart
fire. He would have been more like, "You can't fire me. I quit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm surprised they never got that didn't get a sequel in any type of way, because I would have loved to see a Kevin Conroy Batman who wasn't in the Justice League but also still had to deal with them. I don't know. Maybe it didn't do as well, but I think it was because
I'm going to say that was kind of Justice League. I'm going to say that was more like the Justice League cartoon, because Batman wasn't a full-time member. He was always kind of doing his own thing. There were multiple episodes of the show where Batman kind of went rogue, or I remember seeing a clip recently of one in particular where the Justice League had to turn themselves into the government or something, and Batman was like, "Screw that." And the Justice League is like, "We voted on it." He's like, "I'm a part-time member." You can do what you want.
Yeah, I guess you could say it's from like that Justice League universe. It just has a different art style, but it has, I think, most of the same voice actors.
Yeah,
I think maybe because the movie didn't do as well because it got released when Injustice, the first game, got released too, and I know that because I bought like a collector's edition for Injustice, and the movie came with So he's what came with it. It came with like a statue, the first comic book for the Injustice series. That was to set up the game, and that movie. So it might not have done that well.
Did he voice
Which I
him in
can't believe we went through like half this and didn't even... Yeah. We almost went through this whole thing without mentioning Injustice, but those games are fun too. It's basically Mortal Kombat Light set in the DC universe. And I think I think that's an excellent story. It's an excellent story. Kevin does a great job in it. One of my favorite scenes is, and of course, Tim Daly as well.
Superman, yeah.
Who plays Superman in all those Justice League cartoons and the ones from the 2000s.
DC animated universe.
And was he the voice for the Superman animated series as well?
Yep.
The original series? Okay.
Yeah, oh yeah, those people who played in those animated shows basically did the voices for every version of those characters for
until the new 52,
for 20 years basically. And even after that, I mean, they still do them. I think they had a couple reunions in that universe over the years in animated projects, but yeah, so Tim Daly's Superman.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes with Kevin Conroy and Tim Daly happens in Injustice is when Kevin Conroy's Batman is breaking out a different universe as Kevin Conroy's Batman from the prison. And Superman confronts him. This is evil Superman. If you don't know this, where have you been? And he talks about how, crime took my family too, Clark. And whenever Batman says Clark, I'm always like, oh my God, he's trying to get personal with him. And it just like hits me in the feels a little. And then Tim Daly says, but you weren't the gun. I just think that's an excellent scene. Because for those who don't know, Superman accidentally killed his wife and unborn son and Metropolis, or a million people in Metropolis, because a bomb was connected to Lewis's heartbeat, and when that went off, Joker put fear toxin into mixed fear toxin with kryptonite.
Some kind of illusion tricked Superman to think Doomsday.
Think it Doomsday, so he brought him up to space, but it was actually Lewis, which is dark as fuck. And so then that version of Superman kills the Joker, and then for the next 5 years starts ruling the world, the entire world. So that's why Superman said, but you weren't the gun. So it's like a tragic version of Superman, which has become very popular. A more darker version of Superman.
It's still the best evil Superman story.
Yeah.
But Kevin Conroy's Batman's the hero.
Yeah. But those Injustice games too, it's great because it's not just Kevin Conroy, it's two of him, if you think about it, in that first Injustice game, where he's playing one Batman who is brought into this universe to try and help save that universe from Superman, but also another Batman where he's kind of given up and he doesn't really know what to do. He's conflicted on whether he should kill his friend or not. And all we have to say about any Kevin Conroy performance is great. Like, he was great in it. Even in Batman Killing Joke, Joe hasn't seen it, but it's a little...
Yeah, I know. Somehow I haven't seen that one. I should. It's a
little toned down, both Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy's performance in it. But I think they're both, it's still great. It's still great to hear Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill talk through the Alan Moore dialogue.
It's never bad when you put those two together.
Bad.
Ever.
Yeah.
They're incredible.
Mark Hamill has famously said in interviews and stuff, the first question he asks is, Kevin doing it? Okay, then I'll do it. If it's good enough for Kevin, it's good enough for me.
Which is funny for me for the Killing Joke, because Mark Hamill was ready to retire the Joker after Arkham City. But he came back for the Killing Joke because, well, first of all, it's the Killing Joke, one of the most famous Joker stories of all time. And also, Kevin was doing it. So, yeah, sure. Why not? Come out of retirement for that.
Well, he also came back for Arkham Knight, if you think about it.
Okay, well, that was kind of a surprise role, though.
That was a surprise, yeah.
Nobody thought.
But yeah, he said he wouldn't. He said he wouldn't come back from retirement unless it was the Killing Joke and unless Kevin Conroy was doing it, which just shows how much respect the two have for each other, because they both came up from the Batman animated series, and Mark Hamill
came up before that, but
I mean, through like through
Anime
voice
acting
acting. I mean,
and yeah,
smart ass. Star what? Anyway,
Shrek.
but yeah, as soon as Kevin Conroy passed away, I was like, oh my god, what is Mark gonna say? How is Mark gonna feel? Because the two were just they're
They were
just together
inseparable,
all the
yeah.
time. They're inseparable.
It's
And
Mark
I even
and
looked
Kevin.
up Tim Daly. I even looked up Tim Daly tweet, and they were both very. They both said like this is sad, but they both were like, let's just celebrate who he was and what he brought to this world, and death
Yeah.
doesn't have to be sad. It has, we should celebrate who Kevin Conroy was. He was and they both said like he was a real friend for me. That like they were both friends, and
See, you think of the best Batman Joker pairings. You got Adam West and Cesar Romero. You got Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, Christian Bale and Heath Ledger, Ben Affleck and Jared Leto. But the one everybody knows, Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. They were friends in real life.
Will Arnett and Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah. But if you think of all those pairings, they were basically just one-offs, really. They all faced each other one time. They did the Batman and the Joker thing. Their chemistry was hit or miss. Some of it was really good. Some of it was bad. Sometimes they had a couple different meetings, like Ben Affleck's Batman and Jared Leto's Joker somehow had more meetings than most of the other ones.
One.
I guess Cesar Romero
and they had two.
Two in Zack Snyder's Justice League. I guess Cesar Romero and Adam West had a lot. But Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill have gone against each other. They're the yin and yang. They've been against each other in so many adaptations over the years. They're the real adaptations of these arch nemeses. And just knowing that these two have been going back and forth for so many years just adds to the power of all their adaptations they do together. Because it feels like a real arch nemesis rivalry. You've heard these voices do this a million times over and over, just like in the comic books. It just feels different than anything else.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's funny when you were talking about the pairings. I don't know why Will Arnett and Zach Galifianakis popped into my head from the Lego Batman movie, which is actually underrated. I think it's really funny.
It's incredible.
We were coming back from a flight from I think it was Alberta, and I was sat next to my mom, and it was one of those free movies that was on the airplane if you just scroll through the channels. And I started watching it. I was laughing my ass off. And my mom's like, "What are you watching? Are you serious? Like, this is really funny."
That transitions into a point I wanted to bring up as well to Kevin Conroy's Batman. Is his Batman was one of the few to ever do everything a Batman can do. Most adaptations of Batman, live action, cartoons, what have you, they really only focus on a couple aspects of Batman at a time. Most tend to be the brooding loner stereotype. Like Lego Batman movie was about him finding found family and whatnot with Robin and Batgirl and Commissioner Gordon and trying to not be a brooding loner, which is why it's a great Batman story, because most nowadays don't do that. But Kevin Conroy's Batman is the only Batman he protects Gotham, works alongside Commissioner Gordon. You see the episodes where one of his friends, Harvey Dent, turns into a bad guy. You see the episodes where he gets a sidekick in Dick Grayson. You see even later when Dick Grayson moves on to become Nightwing and he gets a second Robin. You get to see him grow old in Batman Beyond, fight Darkseid and New Gods and aliens, fight alongside the Justice League. See him with the Joker over and over and over, fall in love with Andrea Beaumont or Catwoman or Talia al Ghul, have his Bat family with Batgirl as well, and the multiple Robins, and he's the definitive adaptation of Batman because he did all the Batman stuff. World's Greatest Detective as well. He did everything. No other adaptation of Batman's gotten to do everything that a Batman could ever do.
It's so funny because just to bring up the detective part is, I think Mask of the Phantasm. That's the one Batman movie that I felt like, before the Batman 2022, where it actually felt like a detective movie, where you're trying to piece the parts together.
This isn't a hot take within certain communities, but Mask of the Phantasm is the best Batman movie. I don't care what people say. If you're only someone who's watched the live action, if you're only someone who's watched the live action movies, Dark Knight's the best one. Though my favorite live action, I think, is still the Batman from this year. It hit me. I've only seen it the one time. It hit me. Like, it feels like the best Batman live action.
I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
The Dark Knight's the best movie with Batman in it, but the Batman is the best live action Batman movie. But it's still one of the best. But Mask of the Phantasm is just the best Batman movie in general.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Again, because it's got the most things. It's got that complex psychological layer to Bruce Wayne. It's got the Joker. It's got a new villain. It's only an hour long. It explores Batman's origin story a little bit too. Mm-hmm. It's very dark and gothic, but there's a lot of hope to it too. A lot of tragedy. It really explores what it means to be Batman. And a lot of the scenes in that movie scarred me as a child. Like the scene when somebody calls the SWAT team on Batman because they think he's the Phantasm, and the SWAT team's shooting him up, and he's like crawling through the building, bloody and shot up, and he has to escape from the SWAT team.
Slowly losing each like piece of costume too.
That scarred me as a kid. Oh yeah, and at the end too, like when he's beating the Joker so much, the blood's flowing out of the Joker's mouth, his teeth are falling out, and like those scenes like ingrained in my brain from the time I was a kid watching that Mask of the Phantasm on VHS in my basement. I still have the bit.
Joker has like the biggest Joker laugh at the end of that, where the world's on fire and he just he just loves it.
Yeah.
There's another. I think we also have to bring up. I don't know if you ever watched it, but Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker. That one's really good. Kevin Conroy's not in it as much, but I think it has the best flashback sequence I've ever seen in my life, where, spoiler alert, Joker finds out who Batman is, and he at first takes Robin and Tim Drake Robin and tortures him to become a replica of Joker, and that's how he finds out who Batman is. And it's just a great little speech from Mark Hamill where he says, "I know who you are, Bruce." Like, it'd be funny if it wasn't so pathetic, and then he just bursts out laughing, and then Batman's like, "I've had enough." And he's like, he actually feels like he wants to kill him, and again, I don't know if it's because it's set in the same universe, but Kevin Conroy just has so few lines and there's so little, but the way he delivers them is just amazing.
Oh yeah, that also
what's the clip?
Me? Sorry,
what's the clip where it's more in sense of comedy, but I think it's him where he plays bad cop, good cop with Superman. I don't know if you've seen it, but he plays good cop. It's really funny. You should look it up. But he basically offers, I think, Scarecrow like coffee at one point. He goes, "You should try some coffee. It's good." And he does like a smile, and Scarecrow's like, "Why are you smiling at me?" Because it's just so off the wall, you never see it. And it's a really good clip.
I saw another comedy performance of him lately. It was a clip from Teen Titans Go, of all things, but it was a clip of, in the classic Batman the Animated Series style, where Robin's recounting his backstory and why he left Batman, and the whole thing is just a skit about him literally being in Batman's shadow, and Kevin Conroy's Batman can't even see Robin because his giant shadow's eclipsing him in the darkness. He's like, "Where are you,
in your
Robin?
shadow?
Where are you
again?" The Joker must have taken him.
Going back a few to all the things Kevin Conroy's done, I forgot a big one that he did was in the Arrowverse's Crisis on Infinite Earth special. He got to play the tortured Batman who went too far and killed people. He even got to do that version of Batman in live action.
Yes, what's it called?
Crisis on Infinite Earth.
What's that? No, not that, but the story arc that's based on with the. Oh man, it's because it's the Batman. He's a bit older and he's got like the exosuit, It's called something.
Was it Kingdom Come?
Kingdom Come. Thank you.
Yeah,
That's what it was. That's what it was based on. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Batman became a killer in Kingdom Come, but the exosuit was based on that.
No, but that's what it's based on.
And he got to punch Supergirl in the face with a kryptonite glove.
I haven't watched that, but I've seen clips of it, and it looks very good.
It's great.
Just to see him be like a live-action Batman is awesome.
That was a first, too. No voice actor for Batman's ever got to play him in live action. And I just remember, and what also made that special was that the Arrowverse had intentionally held off on Batman for, I guess it was 7 years old at that point. They'd mentioned Batman a couple times. Even the Batwoman show had been on for its first season, and they only talked about Bruce Wayne. But in all the years of the Arrowverse, Kevin Conroy's Batman was the first time Bruce Wayne ever showed up in live action in that universe. And this is a universe that got to characters like D-listers, like Z-listers before they got to Batman.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And yeah, and
he
was
a
amazing.
Rights thing, or just because they wanted to do like the more
it's because Warner Brothers
stuff.
It's because Warner Brothers was a bit of, I mean, there's a whole history going into this, but Warner Brothers was trying to hold off on a lot of main tier DC characters. They wouldn't let the Arrowverse have them
for the movies. Yeah,
they didn't let them do a Suicide Squad story. They had to scrap that whole thing. They wanted to use Ted Kord's Blue Beetle, but Warner Brothers wouldn't let them, so they made Brandon Routh the Atom instead, Ray Palmer. They wanted to bring in Superman early, but they wouldn't even let them use Superman, so in the whole first season of Supergirl, he's just a shadow, or she just texts him, and then they caved on that and brought in Tyler Hoechlin. And it was bull crap. After they wouldn't let them use Booster Gold either till really recently. It was this stupid thing where they didn't want characters to be in the movies.
Well,
and the
only one who likes Booster Gold is you.
He's amazing. He's incredible.
He gets stomped on by Doomsday in those issues.
Yeah,
when
I
Doomsday
love it.
Was first introduced.
It's
great. Man. And that Superman actor from the Supergirl show that's the same one for Superman and Lois, correct?
Yep, Tyler Hoechlin.
Is that the same one? Yeah.
Yep.
He was at Fan Expo, I think, or did he cancel?
I think, yeah, him and who played Lois in Superman and Lois. I don't remember her name right now.
I think they came.
Yeah, they both came.
I think I saw him.
Yeah, they both came.
He's a handsome man.
Well, most Supermen are.
Mm-hmm. I saw a clip from Superman and Lois where he's talking to is this a spoiler, his son?
No, that's just the premise of the show.
Okay. Where he's talking about his son's in love or whatever, and he just yells at him. I was like, ooh, shit.
He
does very well.
I got to go back a little bit to talk about Kevin Conroy's portrayal of Batman. There was a better transition point to this, but I think what makes him the definitive Batman beyond doing everything a Batman can do is that his portrayal feels the most human of them all. It's like I said before about him taking his real life pain and tough past and putting it into the Batman character. I think a lot of, say for example, Michael Keaton played up the idea that Bruce Wayne was this kind of deranged loner who dressed up like a bat at night. He was clearly mentally ill. He, in his bedroom, he hung up like a bat at night when he slept upside down. He was very just a strange guy as Bruce Wayne. He was like playing up the mental illness. Christian Bale was a lot more grounded, single-minded, nearly sociopathic in a way, the way he could so easily transition between Bruce Wayne and Batman. Like his Bruce Wayne, when he was playing Bruce Wayne not as Batman, he was just a very cold and determined figure, very single-minded, and his Bruce Wayne as the billionaire playboy was good. Robert Pattinson.
This is probably the best live-action Bruce Wayne so far, in my opinion.
Robert Pattinson is that was the whole point, but there's no Bruce Wayne persona. He's just broody all the time.
Not yet, yeah. He's just a sad boy.
And Ben Affleck had this traumatic past. But Kevin Conroy, this Batman is just as traumatized as the others, but he's not he doesn't seem as broken or just scarred by the experience in a way that broke his mind. Not like someone like Michael Keaton, who's just kind of a crazy guy who dresses up like a bat at night. Kevin Conroy always found a way to make his Batman very sympathetic. Bruce Wayne wasn't just a determined loner. He took in a family. He was nurturing. He was a flawed father figure, but he tried to be a father figure to guys like Robin or later Terry McGinnis. He sympathized with his villains like Harley Quinn, who he always hated that the Joker beat her up, and he always thought his villains could be redeemed. He never wanted to beat them up. He always tried to talk people down first and sympathize with them. And to children, he would be an inspiration. He'd never tried to scare kids or anything, just the criminals. He tried to be a hero to the people who looked up to him. He wasn't just a symbol for fear and vengeance. There was a famous scene near the end of Justice League Unlimited where there's this kid who has the power to destroy the world or something with mental illusions, and Amanda Waller wants Batman to take this kid out, and Batman volunteers to go in there, the guy with no superpowers, and he just sits on a swing set and talks to the girl before she's about to die. No other Batman would do that. That's Batman. Like, other Batmen would find a way to sneak in there, beat her up, save the day. They'd all be these macho heroes who are kind of a male power fantasy. Batman is very cold and calculating and smartest man in the world, greatest detective. He's a badass. He's got all this training. He's got mental, physical fortitude. He can beat up aliens. He's a man who can go toe-to-toe with gods. Kevin Conroy's Batman is all that, but he's also a guy who can sit with a little girl who's going to die on a swing set and just comfort her as she's about to die, who sympathizes with his villains, tries to see the best in people, tries to convince his villains that there's a better way to live, doesn't like that he has to fight crime, but sees it as a necessity, tries to be a father figure. Wants a family, falls in love, has somewhat healthy relationships with people, but just self-sabotages. He's not crazy. He's just a flawed man. And he's so well-rounded. No other version of Batman's got all that.
Yeah, and that's why I think the Arkham games are just so good, because there's moments, and it's more touched on in the sequels, where it's at the very end where, because Joker has poisoned himself with the toxin in the previous game, and Batman has the cure, and there's this moment where Batman is just like every day, all you do is bring death and misery to people. They die, and I stop you, but you'll just break out and do it again. And they have a little scuffle, and Joker ends up, and ironically, destroying the cure that could have saved him. And then Batman says to him, "You know what's something funny? After all you've done, I would have saved you." At the end of the day, he doesn't want to be...
That is pretty funny.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, he's just broken. He doesn't want the same pain to be dealt on other individuals, no matter how much like pain and destruction they've done.
Or like Mr.
And one of my
Freeze.
favorite moments, Mr. Freeze as well. He cares about Mr. Freeze. He even goes out of his way. Well, you go out of your way, if you think about it, to find Mr. Freeze's wife in a side mission. And it's touched on more in Arkham Knight, where you actually bring her back to life in a sort of way where Mr. Freeze isn't really a villain in Arkham Knight, from what I remember. Or he might be, I can't remember. But it's more so where Nora says, like, it's okay, like, you can let me go, and Batman even says, "I'm sorry, like, I wish I could do more for you."
Yeah.
And he really just humanizes, to me personally, he's the one that perfectly represents that Bruce Wayne isn't Bruce Wayne is Batman. Like, that's the one he feels more comfortable being in. And it's a little moment near the end of Arkham Knight where he's revealed to be Bruce Wayne, and he's talking to Jim, and he says, "You were a good friend to me, Jim." And he doesn't talk in the voice he uses as Bruce Wayne. He talks as if he's still Batman, but his cowl is off because that's who he feels he is. That's who he's more comfortable being in. And not to say the other Batman actors, even live action voice actors, don't do that. They do portray Bruce Wayne being more in touch, being more comfortable in the Batman persona. But the way Kevin Conroy does it, it just feels natural to him. It's not because he's afraid of being Bruce Wayne. It's because this is just who he is. He is Batman.
I actually have a Kevin Conroy quote here about that. He said, "I decided that the Bruce Wayne persona, the public persona, is the performance, and the Batman character is who he is when he's most natural. When he's putting on the cape, he's becoming himself. Everyone's got issues." So,
yeah.
I think Kevin Conroy is kind of known for that, as being the first person to really distinguish Batman and Bruce Wayne as two different versions of the same guy, but the Batman one being who he really is. Like, even, actually, come to think of it, even in most versions of the show, when he's sitting around in the Batcave with his cowl off, he's still talking in the Batman voice.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when he's out in Bruce Wayne clothes that he talks like when he's with the Justice League, when he's got his cowl off, when he's just talking to Alfred in the Batcave, he uses the Batman voice. You're right. That's
even when he takes his cowl off, I think it might be one of the first episodes of Justice League, or it's a flashback episode, because I don't remember the order. But it's when they first reveal who their real identities are. He still talks in the Batman voice, and it's a great moment where the Flash is like, whoa, I trust you guys, but I don't. And he just interrupts and goes, Wally West, Clark Kent, Bruce Wayne. And at first, my first reaction to that was always like, oh, I have to remember this is the Wally West version, not the Barry Allen version, which I don't know if I know the difference anymore, if I'm being honest with you. I need to do a deep dive on that. Who was the original? Barry Allen? Or it's just unrelated? It just depends on the universe? Okay,
that's me being a smartass again.
Okay. All right.
Jay Garrick was the 40s. Barry Allen was...
slap you. I'm going to slap you. And then
Barry Allen
then it was Wally West, correct?
1950s to the 80s. Wally West was Flash when we were kids, and then Barry Allen was like 2006 to present. So,
right. So in that universe, does Barry Allen even exist? I don't think so. It was just Wally West was the new one, or?
I'm going to assume it was the same kind of thing that happened in the comics. Barry Allen existed, died, and Wally West was his successor. Because in the... Okay. Here's your crash course. Barry Allen was the one who made the Flash powers. Wally West was Barry Allen's. Barry Allen had a love interest named Iris West, and Wally West was her nephew, who would come to visit Iris sometimes. And when Barry and Iris would go on dates, sometimes Wally would be in town for a visit with his aunt, and yada yada yada.
Gotcha.
Wally got the same powers as Barry. He became his sidekick, Kid Flash. And then when Barry Allen died, he became the Flash.
Mm-hmm.
He was kind of the first sidekick to take up the mantle of the main hero. But what made it crazier was that he was the Flash, the only Flash, and Barry Allen stayed dead in the comics for like 20 years. This is back when people who died in comics stayed dead. And Wally West was the Flash for 20 years, and he'd just been the sidekick for 20 years before that in the Teen Titans and in the Flash book. So, yeah, this is a Batman podcast, but,
Yeah, I think another highlight... Gotcha, thank you. I'm still going to slap you. Another highlight episode for Justice League is because I think it's based off of an Alan Moore comic where Superman gets a present, but it's like an alien that's slowly killing him, but in his mind, he thinks he's in his fantasies.
What's that called? What's that one called? That one's called... I know the one... I don't remember what it's called, but I know the story.
Yeah. And the Weekly Planet talked about this recently, but when Batman gets infected with the alien, his fantasy is just, it's Bruce Wayne coming out of the Master Zorro with his parents, and Joe Chill pops up, and I think Kevin Conroy voiced Joe Chill in that episode as well.
Ooh, okay.
Which is very interesting. But instead of Joe Chill killing the parents, it's just Thomas Wayne beating the shit out of Joe Chill for like a solid 5 minutes or something like that. Like a crazy amount of time. And that's just that version of Batman's fantasy, just his dad beating the shit out of their would-be killers. I think that's just so funny. And another funny part in that episode where Wonder Woman was like, "Oh, what'd you get him?" And Bruce Wayne's like, "I got him cash. I don't know. I don't know what he wants." Like,
all right, so
I'm a billionaire. I'll just give him money.
All right, so let's start to wrap her up. Just in general, what does Kevin Conroy mean to you?
Kevin Conroy, to me, he is a hero in terms of voice acting. It's always something I want to get into and always have wanted to get into. He's just been with me throughout my whole life. I mean, through the Arkham games, through the Injustice games, through the TV shows, through the movies. He's just been consistently great in everything. He's been an icon in it. And there's been other voice actors I like that, like I've mentioned Troy Baker and Nolan North, but Kevin Conroy has just been the guy for me. And it sucks that he's no longer with us, but I can't dwell on his death. I have to remember the good times and how he is just an icon. And I think he will always be iconic. And personally, for me, he is my favorite Batman out of the live actions, out of the animations, out of, cartoons. Like you said, when I read Batman comics, I think of his voice. Kevin Conroy to me is Batman now and forever.
To me, Kevin Conroy was one of my early childhood inspirations. He helped me fall in love with the superhero genre in general, but was probably the most complex superhero adaptation of my early childhood. Like I said, he showed me that superheroes not only could be badass and fight the villains, but also that redemption was possible, that even if people commit crimes over and over, you have to show a certain amount of sympathy to people and hope for the best, even if you prepare for the worst, which is kind of Batman's whole thing. He showed that there could be a vulnerability to heroes, that they weren't just people who, like, the criminals weren't the only ones with problems. The good guys could have problems just as deep, but still put good out into the world. He taught me a lot about what it means to be a hero, or just a good person. And beyond that, his adaptations of Batman is one of my favorite characters in anything ever, and his versions of Batman are some of the best versions of Batman ever put to screen. Batman the Animated Series is in my top 10 TV shows of all time, not just cartoons, but all TV shows. The Arkham games are some of the best, most innovative video games ever made. The Justice League animated movies are incredible and have provided me many dozens of hours of entertainment. I also am a fan of the Arrowverse. Seeing him as the live-action Batman in that universe just made me feel great as a fan of DC in general. He's been a constant presence throughout my life, and I never met him personally, but I always feel like I knew him in a way. He's just always been around for me, and it's one of those things where you don't realize how much you're going to miss somebody till they're gone, and this celebrity death has probably impacted me more than any other I can remember, really. Nobody else I've known died has ever just meant as much to me as Kevin Conroy did. Just what he provided to my life in the last 24 years I've been alive. He's just always been there, and one of my most consistent forms of entertainment. And, entertainment is everything to me. All the movies and shows I watch over the years. I'm in media, I'm a writer, so like the fact that he's been there for so much of my formative years and in my medium, it's yeah. So a little bit about his legacy, just to finish off, or what we think his legacy will be. He's known for, when he was in the recording studios back on Batman the Animated Series, he used to make his co-stars laugh, tried to always put people at ease. So his co-stars will remember him as a guy who kept things light and tried to make a working environment a good place. Some other people will remember him for example, after the week after 9/11, he cooked food at a shelter, and there's this famous story about how this guy came up to him and he said, "Oh yeah, I'm an architect, is my day job, and what's your day job?" "Oh, I do voice work." And he's like, "Oh, I knew it. I recognized your voice. You're Batman, aren't you?" And the guy apparently yelled back to all his other friends, like, "Hey, Batman's cooking our food." And they're like, "No, we don't believe you."
Bullshit.
Yeah. And then he did his famous Batman speech, and then they all were like, "Holy shit, Batman's cooking our food." And he's like, "The week after 9/11, this is the first time I saw New Yorkers smile in a while." And so he was making people feel good. He attended an insane amount of conventions, including our local fan expo, Toronto. He really cared about his fans, like we said, was a performer on websites like Cameo, connected with his fans at every opportunity, never looked down on people for liking Batman. He embodied the role in real life, always tried to just let people foster their love and what it meant to them. He was a kind-hearted human being who tried to make people's lives happier however he could, whenever he could. Conroy may not have stopped any real-world villains or worn a cape, but he was a hero and an inspiration to us nonetheless, and will be missed dearly by all. He may be gone, and other actors will embody Bruce Wayne in the decades to come, but we believe that however amazing their portrayals, and forever long Batman exists, Kevin Conroy will endure as the Dark Knight's definitive adaptation. He's not just a version of the Caped Crusader. He is vengeance. He is the Knight. He is Batman. Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. We hope to see you on the next Close-Up with Ryan and Joe, where we review God of War Ragnarok and Glass Onion. Till next time.
Take care.